Dan Hawkes and the Eagle's Cipher by Richard Brandon. Read by Glen Mccready. Chapter 1. Not My War. The church clock struck 12. Dan had time to skim one last stone. He'd saved a particularly flat one for his finale. This would be the record breaker, his personal best. He gripped his lower lip between his teeth in concentration. Whipping the stone across the pond, Dan watched it glide over the water. On the third bounce it skipped high into the air, arched gracefully over onto its side, and plunged into the still water. Not the finish he'd wanted. He gazed at the ripples spreading out across the pond, until they touched the bank beneath his feet. Disappointing. That was how the whole war sometimes seemed to Dan. The ripples would always touch him, no matter where he was. But the real action was in the middle of the pond, and he'd have nothing to do with it. Not now. Not after his father's accident. But it turned out that Dan Hawkes couldn't have been more wrong. Kitty Finch wrinkled up her snub nose and squeezed herself even tighter between the water butt and the wall of Uncle Lawrence's barn. It wasn't really a barn. It was one of a series of brick outbuildings. Even a suspicion that she'd been this close to it would land her in serious trouble. Uncle Lawrence had made it very clear the barn was strictly off-limits. But then Uncle Lawrence wasn't her proper uncle, so she supposed that didn't really count. Kitty's guardian had arranged for her to stay with Lawrence and Doris Hawkes a few weeks earlier, just another one of the many child evacuees escaping the cities and the anticipated bombing raids. The village of Hopworth couldn't have been more of a contrast to London, and up until now she'd resigned herself to a life of excruciating boredom. But there was something about Uncle Lawrence that intrigued her. Or at least there was something about his barn that intrigued her. She just...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?